Step into the squared circle, where the bell echoes through decades, where main events become legends and tag teams tore the house down. From the undercard to the top of the card, this is Portland Wrestling at its finest. One ring, one city, 1,000 stories. This is Ringside in Rose City. And here's your hosts, Frank Culbertson and Mike Rogers.
Hey, thanks, Lisa. You always set the table just right. I'm Frank Culbertson, alongside Portland wrestling historian
Mike Rogers.
This is Ringside in Rose City, where the canvas is sacred, the stories are legendary, and the Portland wrestling lives on. It's one ring, one city, but 1,000 stories. And every single one of them echoes from the Portland Sports Arena. So if you're looking for nostalgia, if you're looking for the kind of history that doesn't just sit in record books but breathes, you're in the right place. Now, normally, we let fate decide. Lisa spins the wheel, Mike braces himself, and I find out what's coming next. But tonight, we don't need the ringside wheel, because when a legend walks into the studio, you don't leave it up to chance. That said, Lisa is still Lisa the control freak. And even when the ringside wheel gets the night off, she insists on pushing a button. So Lisa, you know what to do. Punch that button.
And they got a name for you when you're the greatest wrestler in wrestling today. They don't call you a great wrestler. They call you the Grappler. Beat me if you can.
Mike, I don't think we need to say much more. Introduce our guest, if you will.
Our guest tonight would go on to hold the Northwest title 7 times. He'd hold the tag titles 11 times with various partners like Steve Dahl, Scotty the Body, the Equalizer, Brian Adams, Abu Dean, Don Harris. Our guest tonight is none other than the Grappler, Lynn Denton.
Oh, Lynn, it's great to have you here.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me on, Frank. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we get started, I want to plug the Grappler's book. It's titled Grappler, Memoirs of a Masked Madman. It's available now on Amazon, and I highly recommend it. I've read it several times. I know Mike has too. And we'll be touching on some of the stories that are in the book, but there are so many others. It's a must-have for all wrestling fans. So not now, but right after this podcast, go to Amazon and buy Grappler, Memoirs of a Masked Madman. And Grappler is going to be at The Gathering in July in Charlotte, North Carolina. So for all of our listeners, make plans to get out and see the Grappler in person. I got to tell you, he will keep you mesmerized the entire time. He alone is worth the price of admission.
You know something, when you're talking about The Gathering in July, the Grappler, I'm going to be there, and Grappler 2 is going to be there, Tony Anthony. And then we're also going to be, the Dirty White Boys are going to be there. Me and Tony, when we were the Dirty White Boys. So we're going to be there twice. Different characters.
Selling twice the gimmicks.
Yeah, I hope so.
So we'll keep reminding them about that coming up in July, because I've looked at the lineup that is there. And it's, although we just saw you at the Portland Wrestling Expo, this lineup at The Gathering is one of the best I've seen in the nation.
Yeah, they have so many stars and so many people. It's unbelievable. It's going to be fun to see Tony Anthony. I hadn't seen him in a while. And, you know, they've never had me and him together on any show, and it's the Dirty White Boys. It's always been the Grapplers. This will be the first time that we're hooked up, looking like the Dirty White Boys, the old Dirty White Boy tag team.
Well, we know what that looked like. We're going to talk about Portland, but I know Mike and I both want to start a little bit farther back in your career, because your career is so much more than just Portland. Mike, where do you want to start?
Yeah, I'd like to start with the mask. You seemed like you started using the mask just at the right time. A little bit later on in the mid 80s and the later 80s, there were so many masked kind of jobber tag teams, especially on WCW TV. But it seemed like you were using the mask and it still meant something. Whose idea was it for you to start being the Grappler? And did you enjoy working with the mask?
Well, you know what? The first time I wore the mask, I was working in Atlanta and Georgia territory, and Ole Anderson was the booker. And I was like 19 years old, you know, before I ever got a break or anything. And they had that Atlanta superstation, you know, Ted Turner, first nationwide TV for wrestling was on. And so they would do 2 tapes in the morning in Atlanta, and then we'd go to Columbus, Georgia, and do a tape. and then we'd go do a spot show that night. And so only, of course, they try to get as much mileage as they can out of it for the same payoff. He said, "Hey, can you wear a hood?" And I said, "Yeah." And I had a blue hood. He said, "Okay." So I went on there and I wrestled as Lynn Denton on one tape. And the next tape I wrestled as the challenger. And so I was a challenger to start out with, but I challenged everybody and got my ass kicked every time. But then I'd go to Columbus and work as Lynn Denton on the first match, and third or fourth match, I'll be the challenger. And so this went on and on. But I left there and went to some other territories. I went to Calgary and I went to different places. Finally, I come back and I was getting ready to quit the business. I'd been in the business about 4 years, and they said the goal was, and the word was back then, if you ain't got a spot on top, if you're not working main event, you're not in main events, by your 4th year, you need to go get a job because this ain't going to work for you. And I was into my 4th year. And so I just got married about 6 months before that. And I told my wife, she's from Charlotte, North Carolina, my first wife. And I said, "Listen, we're going to go back." Charlotte, I called, and Crockett said, "Yeah, we'll bring you back in, give you a run," so a little bit. It was just in the middle, underneath, stuff like that. I came back and I told her, "It'll probably last 6, 7, 8 months. You can visit your family. Then I'm quitting. We're moving back to Texas. I'm going to work with my dad in the construction business and all this." So while this was going on, I'm making all the shows. And just happened to be one time we were in Norfolk, Virginia, and we wrestled in Norfolk that night before, and we stayed over at a hotel. We had Richmond the next night. So we stayed at this particular hotel, and I went to the gym. We got something to eat the next morning. I come back, and I was walking down the hallway, and that's before cell phones and all that kind of stuff. And I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I'll think of it in a minute, but another one of the guys, and he had the door open. And so I walked by, "Hey, Lenny, come here. This guy wants to talk to you on the phone." And it was Buck Robley, and he was booking Mid-South for Bill Watts. And so I got on the phone with Robley. He goes, "Hey, I heard you work pretty good, kids. It's I heard you're a good worker." I said, "Oh, yeah, heck yeah." And I said, "Because I hear that you wear a mask, right?" I said, "Yeah, I wear a mask." And he goes, "Now, it was about a week before this happened. I was riding with Don Cornoodle on some trips. We're making trips and, shows, and he got to riding together for a few days. And me and Don got in this conversation in the car on the way home from one town. He said, she brought up, he goes, "One of these days, Don Cornoodle, I like to wear a mask." And he goes, I said, "Well, why?" So I told him about in Atlanta when I did jobs, got people wearing a mask on the underneath card on TV. And he goes, I said, "Yeah, I'd like to do that." But I said, "What would you call yourself?" Don says, "I call myself the Grappler." I go, "Wow." He said, "Well, that means wrestler. That means you're a wrestler, great wrestler." I go, "Oh, that's a pretty good name." Anyway, so when Robley hit me with this, says, "Hey, I hear you wear a mask, and we got a place on top, hot in the top spot in Mid-South. I need a top heel that wears a mask. What do you call yourself?" I went, "I call myself the Grappler." He goes, "That's a hell of a name." He gave me my starting date, and I gave my notice and came in there. And that's how I got to Mid-South.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's what wrestlers always steal from one another. So it's right on time.
Yeah. And then, Dr. Noon, poor God bless him, he's gone now. But Don, every time I'd see him in the dressing room, "You owe me residuals, you asshole."
So from the mask, I'll ask about the boot. In Portland, we had Dutch Savage. He loaded the knee pad, and I think he loaded the elbow pad some point. Somebody did, but I can't remember who. The Claw loaded his mask, but no one had the orthopedic boot. Now, thanks to modern medicine, you can now wear normal shoes, and we're all very happy and thankful for modern medicine.
Yeah, thank you.
But who came up with the loaded boot gimmick?
Okay, so when I went to Mid-South, Bill Watts goes, "Here's the thing. I'll never forget. I was working there I'd been there about 3 weeks. And now they had a guy that worked there a long time before. When I was a rookie, I remember about 4 years before, there was a guy and he worked and he had a loaded boot and wore a mask, but he was only there about a week. And I can't remember his name. It's so long ago. But anyway, so I guess Watts had this idea, but when they brought me in, I didn't have the job right off. I never forget it. I'd been there about 3 weeks and we were in Shreveport, Louisiana. And Watts flew his airplane in. Usually he didn't, this is not a TV weekend or nothing, but I didn't know Watts was there. He was hiding on the babyface side behind the curtains in that big stage there. And back then, if Watts caught you going like the bad guys and the good guys' dressing room or vice versa, he fired your ass right on the spot. It was total kayfabe. You didn't do that. It wasn't allowed. And so everybody knew that. But I'm sitting in the dressing room waiting to go on. I'm working with Paul Orndorff, and I'm like third match. And then Paul all of a sudden goes, hey, sneaks over behind the curtain all the way across the stage. He hid from Watts, says, Lenny, Bill was here. I said, what, Watts is here? He goes, yeah. I said, why? He said, because he came, he told me just to watch our match tonight. He said, he's going to decide tonight whether he's going to give you a push or not. He said, you better have a guy. I said, brother, just listen to me. I never forget Paul doing that. And he snuck back across, and we went 30 minutes through to draw, right? And man, I laid out all the stops, brother. And right there, that's when Watts says, okay. And he called me and talked to me about doing the angle with Ted DiBiase in Monroe, Louisiana, where he hurt my leg real bad, and I left for 2 weeks, and I come back with an orthopedic boot. So it was Bill Watts' total idea. You know?
Wow.
It was his idea.
So, Mike, I think you have a question about Bill Watts.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Bill Watts and the level of faith that he puts into you. You know, especially the one result that just comes to mind, he puts you a Super Destroyer and you win a tag tournament beating Andre and Dusty. I mean, that's a big a push as imaginable.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about Watts as a promoter, and then was he a good booker, or was that Buck Robley still in charge with the booking?
No, Bill Robley was good, but Watts, he critiqued everything. And Bill was an excellent booker, and Bill knew how to get people over and how to draw money. He was excellent for TV. He knew how to work that TV show. He was very good. I'd give him 120% credit. He wasn't the nicest fella you ever met in your life, but he was hard to get along with, and he didn't give a crap how hard he worked you. But he was very, very intelligent, very smart booker. He knew what he was doing, knew how to draw money. He had that for sure. I'll tell you what, you're talking about Watts. We're in the dressing room one time. I had one half of the Louisiana tag team title. I had the North American heavyweight title, and I had the Mississippi heavyweight title. Okay? So we're at TV, and he calls a meeting, and he goes, hey, and Bob Baruch, which is one of the toughest guys you ever met, Bob Orton Jr. had got a big fight in Arkansas, but got their ass handed to him. And so this is like 2 days later. The both of them have black eyes. Some of them rednecks in Arkansas are pretty tough. I don't care what kind of shooter you are. So he's sitting there. He goes, listen, he had big meetings. I'm going to tell you what, you guys go to bars, you go anywhere you go, he goes, you're supposed to represent the wrestling business. If you can't protect the business, you don't have a job here. And he said, most of all, I'm telling you, Lynn Denton, he goes, you got all the belts. You got every belt in the territory, and you like to go to them honky talks with that damn redneck Dick Murdoch every night. He goes, if you get your ass whooped, don't come back to work. And I go, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so everybody's looking at me. And then when he walked off, I looked at Murdoch because Murdoch thinks it's great. He's laughing, right? I said, Dickie, it don't matter if I get my ass whooped or not. I wear a hood. They ain't gonna know who I am. He goes, I'll stirred you up, you asshole.
Oh.
He would have stirred me up.
Oh. That night in the Superdome, there was 22,000 people. It's 1981. And not only was it you and Super Destroyer, and not only was it Andre and Dusty, but you had Jake Roberts and Jimmy Garvin as a team. You had Afa and Sika, Ernie Ladd and Leroy Brown, the Freebirds, Coco Samoa and Buck Robley, and Dick Murdoch and JYD. That is an amazing tournament.
Hell of a card, ain't it?
Oh. Now, before we just get to Portland, let's talk about booking philosophy.
In the book interview, I asked you a lot of different questions about booking philosophy and different bookers. To me, it seems like, because, you know, I'll sit at home and I'll cut out names, write names on paper, and pretend I'm the booker of a wrestling promotion. And it just seems like if you're in wrestling, that just seems like it would come natural. Like everybody would have the interest to be a booker, but I know that there's so much more involved than just coming up with angles and coming up with storylines. Can you speak to some of the nuances of booking?
Yeah, I'll tell you. It's okay. First of all, the one bad part about booking is everybody in their dressing room, everybody's an athlete. Mostly everybody's, done something or been somewhere. So everybody wants to be in the main event. Everybody wants to have the belts and everybody wants to win. So everybody can't do that, or we can't have no storyline. You know what I mean? And so, but you get all these egos flowing, and it gets worse and worse. So being a booker, you have to control that. You have to make sure they're not killing each other, make sure things are getting across what you want to cross. And the one thing that I do as a booker, that I learned from Harley Race and guys like that, was that's the first place I ever booked. I learned a ton there from Ric Flair and Harley Race when I was booking all kinds of stuff. But you have to start a storyline, build up a program, an angle. And then while you're building this one, you're starting one underneath it. Because when you blow that one off, you got another one to follow it. But you have to remember, if you're going to draw money with an angle, you need a personal issue. It's got to be a personal issue, or people ain't going to pay to come back and buy tickets to see it. It's got to be something personal they get into. They go, man, if that was me, I'd kick that guy's ass, or whatever it is, whichever way it is. Yes, it's got to be a personal issue. And a lot of guys don't do that. They think just going out there with the music and putting on the bandanas and signing autographs and I'm over. Well, they don't get you over all the time. You know what I mean? All the way. It's the personal issues, getting the fans behind you, wanting to buy. Like nowadays they got contracts. Nowadays they got, TV revenue that's paying guys. Back in our day, it was the asses that went in the seats. So you got to show me how many tickets you can sell. People come in and really buy tickets. That's a different story. You know what I mean? It's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about you booking in Kansas City at such an early age, and such an early age for that position. And in the book, we talked about how difficult it was for you to work with somebody, and I'm just using this person as an example, Luke Graham, who'd been in the business for many, many years. And here you are, you're a youngster in that position. And how did you navigate that, booking with someone?
Here's the thing. Luke was an old timer. I respected Luke totally. All the veterans I did anyway. And we were riding together every night. Before this happened, all of a sudden I ended up with the book. Luke gets in the car and goes, we got it made now. We're running this place. We'll run this place, not me, we. And I go, well, Luke, Harley owns this place and Bob Guy goes, so I guess we are trying to run it. One thing led to another. When Luke didn't like, because I wouldn't push him hard enough, he got pissed off. And I would go back in the office and Harley would tell me, no, I'm giving him a job because I respect him. He's not going to draw. He goes, do what I tell you to do. But Harley wouldn't tell him, had to leave it to me to tell him. Okay, so you see all the animosity it caused. I mean, he was good friends with Jerry Blackwell, right? And they were in Kansas City, and we had a joint card with the Minnesota office. And so Gagne had sent some guys in Kansas City. And so Blackwell was on the card. And I'm sitting there watching the match. All of a sudden, Blackwell chopped me so hard in the back of the neck, almost dropped me to my knees. He goes, and he wouldn't let go. And he goes, so you're screwing my buddy Luke around, are you? I went, Jerry, listen, if you got a problem with it, brother, go your ass to Harley and talk to him, okay? Then he let go and just backed off, right? But I mean, that kind of stuff you got to put up with, dude, if you want that position. I didn't realize that going in, but I knew real quick. I learned real quick. So when I took the job in Portland, I was a different guy. I handled everything differently. I didn't go in with blinders on.
So we're going to get to Portland. In 1987, you're in Texas. You're working as the Grappler through May. And then suddenly in June, you work as Lynn Denton for a couple of weeks. And then quickly, you're a dirty white boy, but this time with Tim Brooks in July. Then in August of 87, you wrestle a final Texas match in the year as the Grappler. So you knew you were coming to Portland. What made you come to Portland as the Grappler and not a dirty white boy?
No, because I knew if you ever watch me work as a dirty white boy or work as a Grappler, I'm a better wrestling heel than a biker. I never rode a Harley. I don't know that much about it. And to be able to portray it and do it honestly and look the part, you got to know something about what you're doing. I knew how to wrestle some, and I've been doing that forever since I was a kid. And I'm more comfortable. So I know for you to go out there and get something over, you have to feel it. For me to get over, you have to feel it, feel like you're part of it. Otherwise, it don't get over the way it should. And then being the dirty white boy, like Watts came to me, and we were in Mid-South as dirty white boys, me and Tony Anthony. And he come and said, here's what I want you to do. This is what ended my dirty white boy reign there too. He said, I want you to put grease all over your face and arms and go out there and do a promo like a biker, like you've been working on your Harley. I said, let me tell you something, Bill, I can't do that. That ain't me. That's not me. So it wasn't long after that, I was gone, you know?
So
I just couldn't portray that gimmick, you know?
sure. And so that goes back to the real life issues. When you were who, you were more effective.
Was more effective, got over better than people. They got into it, believed in it.
Yeah, yeah. So Rick calls you to come and book in Portland. What did he tell you about the territory, the talent that was here? How long in advance before coming to Portland did he call
He
you?
called me and it was like 2 weeks or so.
Wow.
Yeah, and he goes, Lenny, they got a spot for you over here. And then Don wants to hire you as first booker. And I said, okay. I knew he didn't have to talk very much because Brody had already given me my notice. Or I was due. He'd already told me. What happened was this. Frank came to me and said, Frank Brody was the booker in Dallas at the time. So he came to me and said, Lenny, we're friends, but he goes, Lenny, you've been here about almost a year. You ran your course. It's time for you to leave. Pretty quickly, I already got word from the office. I'm going to have to give you your notice. I said, okay, Frank, I understand. But I was working with Kevin Von Erich that night, right? And this in the Dallas Sports Arena. And he comes to me and goes, look, he said, you got Kevin tonight. He tells me all this in the process to tell me you're working with Kevin tonight. So I looked at Frank. I said, Frank, how you want me to catch a ball with a claw? He goes, all right, Lenny. And so he goes, he's going to catch you with a claw. You know the story. I go, okay, get about 10 minutes. So he came to me right before I went out. And he goes, Lenny, they want to get some color. If you can get some good juice. He said, I might get you an extra couple of weeks. I go, okay. So, brother, I went to the bone. It was pumping through his fingers. It looked great on TV, right? So I'm in the shower trying to get to stop because it won't quit bleeding. And I cut a little too deep, and I'm trying to get to stop. Well, me and John Norton go to the bar. I don't want to go and get stitched up. So I'm in the shower with ice on it, and Frank all of a sudden jerks the curtain open in the shower. He says, hey, kid, good job. I got you an extra 6 weeks. Good job out there. So,
Wow.
So I knew I was going. Then I get the call from Rick, and Rick tells me about Don. Don, Portland, Oregon is a great territory and home every night. Don pays well. So, I mean, I've been stupid not to take up the offer, right? And so he goes, Jim, they want to hire me as a booker. Now, me and Don argued for almost 2 weeks. I wanted $800 a week guarantee. He said, I'll give you 7. I said, no, 6. I go, no, 8. We went for 2. Finally, he said, okay, hell with it. Come on in, okay? We'll see how you do. And so that's how I got to start. That's how I got into Portland. Of course, Joey Jackson, who I trained, was already there. He gave me a good word. Mike Miller, which is a friend of mine, gave me a good word. And Fidel Sierra, David gave me a good word too.
Yeah.
All those put in a good word for me.
Now, I know that Chris Colt was here when you came, and he'd been here off and on, and very talented, but obviously had his demons. And I know you tried to utilize him. If he had been more reliable, would you have been willing to push him harder, especially as a manager?
The problem with him is Chris Colt was like sometimes he'd be like a woman. You couldn't even control him. He's just going crazy in the dressing room. They're like, what the hell is he even saying? Why is he all going, what's wrong with, it's like he was off the wall sometimes. And you're right, he was talented. He could talk good. But he was just hard to control, and you never knew what he was going to do. And it's just hard to have someone we're trying to push, you give a break when you don't know if they're going to go out and be able to handle it or not, or what's going to happen. You got to be able to count on the guy. So he's going to be able to push and trust them and they're going to go out and do what they ask them to do, and still do what they want to do. One time, him and Moretti, I love Moondog Moretti, don't get me wrong. But one time, they go out on the crow's nest. I cannot believe that. Kids are watching this show, Channel 12. It's the hottest show in wrestling, in Oregon, right? And so we got better ratings, or just as good almost as Roseanne Barr back, which is the hottest thing sitting on TV. He goes out there and he spits up on the crow's nest with Don Callis, spits up in the air, and Chris Colt catches it with his mouth right on TV. They come back. I said, come here. I said, let me tell both of you something. The next time, if you ever do that again on TV, or especially on our house show, your ass is fired on the spot. Don't ever do that again. I couldn't believe they did that. All these kids are watching their, you know what I mean?
Kids don't try this at home.
Yeah, please don't do this at home.
Frank, you and I got to stop doing that.
Yeah. Oh, we do it every show. So you would talk about talent. You start bringing in new talent, and by the end of the year, you've got Avalanche, you got Brian Adams, the Assassin is back here now, not the Destroyer, the Assassin. Abuda Dean. You push Art Barr, give him the new TV title. You mentioned Joey Jackson, and we all just saw Joey at the Portland Wrestling Expo. He's a great guy, and but you brought him here with no experience. So number one, how did you sell that to Don as somebody with no experience? And second, new talent, what are you looking for?
Well, of course, you want something that attracts the people's eye, and they go, "Wow, this is something different." You know what I mean? Now, Joey, I trained Joey, okay, and Rick called me. This is a year before I ever went there, or more. He called me and says, "Hey, me and Rick were talking on the phone because me and Rick were partners, and we worked job guys around territories. Then we were Florida tag team champions, and we were friends, good friends. So we called and talked to each other every once in a while. And so Joey, I was training, and Joey was ready to go. He was ready, and so I called Rip. I got a guy trained, Joey Jackson, and he's never worked. It's his first territory, but I trained him, and I'm telling you, he's polished. He's ready to go. And he said he talked to Don Owens, and Rip talked to Don. Don said, "Bring him in." And Don fell in love with Joey the first night. He said, "Damn, that's your first match." He couldn't believe it. But Joey told me, Don even told him, which he would never tell me this, but Don told him, "I don't know who Lynn Denton is, but he must be a hell of a worker because if he taught you, you already know how to work in your first match." And so he was all proud of Joey. So that's how he got there.
Yeah, gorgeous Joey Jackson.
Yeah.
Great guy, good talent.
Now, the other guys you're talking about was like, Art Barr was a hell of a wrestler, but he needed a gimmick. He needed somebody to get behind. Roddy Piper gave him that Beetlejuice gimmick. Yeah. They got over like $1 million with the kids. You got kids following you around the ring. It was perfect. And the movie was just out. And then you got Brian Adams. Now look at him. But here's the thing a lot of people don't know. When Brian Adams came in, he was hurting people. The first week in the business, and Don said, "I ain't putting him on TV. He's too green." I had to take him to the pit stop and work out with him for 2 or 3 weeks before he'd ever go on TV. At my cost, Don didn't pay me nothing. Okay? Also, the thing with the Bruise Brothers, Don Harris and them, I had to do the same thing with them. He wouldn't put them on TV until I went and worked out and got them sharpened up. Let's see who else. There was a couple of others. I had a ring at the pit stop in the cage outside. Right. So I'd take them out there and work with them. So when you do this on TV. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So also you started using kind of the specialty type matches. There was a bunkhouse match, the tape fist match, cowbell match, street fight, bull rope, all sorts of specialty gimmick matches. And before you came, I think we talked a little bit about this, how there was no angles, there was no specialty matches. So it was really noticeable when your booking started being noticed as just a fan watching TV.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because Rhett was on the way out, and then basically the way they did it, the way I heard Joey Jackson told me, because he was here a year before I got here, he goes, guys like when Buddy Rose is here, he would give ideas to Don, and if they liked it, they would do it, and Rip would give him ideas, and everybody was sold in like everybody was playing Booker, Yeah. But when I come in, I learned in Kansas City, you got to take charge and take over, because otherwise it'll go crazy. Everybody be doing their own thing, and it's not going to get over, and it won't draw, and that's what was happening, And so nobody was doing the angles, and I don't think Don really bothered him that bad because the sports rings paid off. They were doing okay. Don don't need the money to start with. He was coming there having fun with his hobby, so he didn't really care. When I came, I said, my concern, of course, Don said, "Okay, you're the first booker I ever hired. I can't believe I hired you as a booker. But now I want to see what you can do, Booker. You got this big name that said in Kansas City with Hardy Race. Now, see if you can sell out the sports arena." And every week I go in and go, "You ain't sold the sports arena out yet, Grappler." Lynn Denton, the big booker, the Texas boy with a big old mouth, can't get nothing done. I heard that so many times, bro. So many times from Don, he wouldn't let up. But so I had to prove him. We finally sold that sucker out, though.
Talking about Rip coming back. So Rip goes to the WWF, he calls you and you come in, but he comes back in after just 3 months. And I know you said that there's no issue between the two. You guys were friends, but Rip couldn't have been very happy with the way his time in WWF went. He probably thought it was going to be a little bit different. How did you guys handle that? And what was Don's reaction to Rip coming back? Because Don hated, as he called it, New York.
When Rip come back, I went straight to Rip and I say, Rip, listen, my brother, you got me this job here. You were the boss before I left. So far as I'm concerned, we can run this thing together. He goes, no, I don't want that. He said, you take charge. You do it, Lenny. If I can help you in any way, I will. I'll work. I said, but he said he didn't want to work. He didn't want to come in full time like that. He wanted to do what he was doing. He got caught up in that logging thing and driving truck, and he was tired of being there. He just didn't want to do it. He came back and worked the angle as a logger, with the shooter bar thing and all that. But he didn't want to go full time. Because I asked him, come on, because he's great talent. I want to do it.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about Don Owens, and it sounds like you had an interesting relationship with him as far as ribbing each other back and forth. And we've always heard that Don was a good payoff person, and he complained a lot about the mills closing down. We'd always hear people say that, but he really liked the camaraderie and then the true wrestling. I think that he wanted to see Kaninsky versus Thez type of matches. Yeah. Any more Don Owens stories?
I'll tell you one that was one of my favorite things I ever seen Don do. This is a great one, right? So every Thanksgiving card, right, he would have the midgets on there, right? And so this particular time, I was there and I'm booking it. And so we got the Thanksgiving card and I'm trying to put all these matches together and do all this stuff. So I had the midgets, which is cool. So it was Little Tokyo and I think Cowboy Lang at that time, right?
Sure.
So I see here comes Don rolling in a shopping cart basket, like from the grocery store, full of turkeys. So he's giving all the guys a turkey for Thanksgiving, which I thought was cool. He gets to the bottom, he goes over to the midgets and has each midget a garnished game hen. Really, that was the greatest. I laughed. Little Tokyo cussed Don and said, I don't want no game hen. Why you give me big turkey? That was great, man. Tokyo didn't want to eat it, but I had my wife cook it.
So I know you and I worked with Matt Bourne when we were doing Portland Wrestling. So in March of '88, Matt Bourne returns. He's got a lot of issues. We've known about that. But what was it like working with Matt? Because you and him had a really hot feud. Oliver leaves for a little bit, so you guys were really the top feud at the time.
Matt you never know where he's coming from, man. It was like working with Billy Jack. It's like one night everything's great, the next night he knocks you by your boots. One time we're working in Roseburg, I never forget it. He just decided to start taking my ass or whatever. He knocked the wind out and he dropped me. I'm dropped on my knees in the mat, right? So I finally made it up, got my wind back, and I dropped his. Sometimes it was a street fight with a guy. I'm not kidding you. And then sometimes it was, great match. He was a good worker, but you never know where he's coming from mentally. And then I'll never forget after we had that big fight out there in the ring, and I'm sitting in the dressing room. He goes, you don't want to work with me no more, do you? I said, Matt, why don't you kiss my ass? Do you think I want to fight you every night, you idiot? I go, hell, that's why they call this a work, Matt. I don't know if anybody's smartened you up to it yet or not. They're all mad, right?
Oh.
But it's crazy. And, you never know where he's coming from. And then I see him 2 days later. Hey, Lenny, give me a hug. Hey, my brother. Me go way back. Me and brothers. We're friends. I'm like, oh, my God. I just got through fighting the guy 2 nights ago, right?
And, one more question on Matt Bourne. When he did his interview and challenged Bruce Anderson to come, that was the one question that I most wanted to ask anybody in wrestling. And I was able to ask you that question, about him and whose idea was that? Was that his idea? You said it was his idea. But here's a follow-up question to that. When he cut that initial interview and he challenges Bruce Anderson that he'd better be here next week because there was going to be blood anywhere, did Don or did anybody push back on him saying, don't do that?
Of course, that trip was over. Here come Barry and Don. They go, Lenny, go, God. I said, you think I told him to go up there and do that? I said, hell no, he did it on his own. And so Don, of course, said, Bat, what are you doing? Da-da. He's on the back and we're getting paid. And he, of course, he went, screw Barry Sanders or whatever. But, it's like talking to the wall. I mean, it's already done. There's no taking it back now.
Yeah.
But it's like, so then he just said, don't give him no interviews next week. Don't give him any. I said, well, Matt, he's all to walk up there and just start talking, whether he's on one or not. I said, I can't watch him like I do my kids at home,
Man. So in May, there's some big changes, and Buddy Rose returns. Tom Zink comes in. Jesse Barr, Al Madrill is here more full-time. Were there any booking issues with Rose? Because he could be pretty overwhelming.
What Rose is so funny. It's like I was thinking the same as you. I was saying, he's probably going to come in and think, what I thought he would probably do is he would go behind my back to Don and Barry and go, here's what we should do and this and that. And he kind of do his own thing. I said, if he does that, I'm going to be pissed. And Don and them too. But I said, I approached Don when I knew he was coming in and said, look, am I booking or he said, no, you're learning things. You tell bros, you listen to what you say. And so when I went to the dressing room, I told Rose that, but I go aside, don't pray from everybody. But then Buddy said, well, listen, can I put any input? I said, brother, whatever input you got, if it works for storylines and stuff I'm trying to do, give me anything you got. Well, Rose is pretty good. He's pretty sharp. So most of the stuff he done, he thought of. I go, you know what do you got? Just do it. Most of it, I'd say just do it because he had great ideas,
Yeah. Sure. So we'll go to August of '88, and Top Gun, who I think he was here before, maybe, I don't know. He wrestled like the Assassin and the Destroyer. He kind of sounded like him. Funny about that. But I want to talk about Dennis Condrey coming in because he was only here a week. He had some issues getting licensed. So what brought him in? Because I think we've had some great tag teams in Portland wrestling history, but I think you and Dennis would have been maybe one of the best tag teams ever.
We would have been a good tag team, and I thought the same thing, but Dennis was just coming in for a limited time. He had some other plans already set up. He didn't want to come to stay. He was traveling through, and that's what that was all about. Because I tried to get Dennis to stay.
Man, yeah, he was a great worker. He's a great worker.
Great worker, very good worker.
The last time we interviewed, we talked about Tatsumi Fujinami and the Northwest title change there. And you had mentioned that it was essentially Don's idea, which really surprised me. Was Don a little more savvy on wrestling from other places than we give him credit for?
Well, he talked to different promoters and different things, and he had talked to those Japanese guys over there because he came to me with it. When Fujinami came in, they had some guy with him, but they sat with Barry and talked and Don, and that's how they worked it out. But that they came because they come in and said, we want to take the Northwest heavyweight title and then drop it in Japan. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And so I looked at Don like, are you insane? Right? We're not in Japan. Thank you, but we're not doing it. But they did, And so it was a good angle. They come up with that. We talked to Don. Then Don ran it by me. Well, if they're paying the airfare, they're doing everything. It sounds good to me. I don't mind doing it. That's how that went down,
So you talked about the Japanese promoters, but in January of '89, for us people who love Portland wrestling, there was the famous WCW at the Sports Arena deal. How did that get booked? And you and Rose were a tag team, and you took on JYD and Ivan Koloff. So you and JYD had met a lot of times before. But what was it like to work with? How did that come together? And what's it like to work with JYD at that age of him?
Our brother, I worked with him many times. JYD he only had certain things he could do. He did them good, but he had hell of a stiff clothesline. But I knew how to work around him, where it make him look good. And then he wasn't nobody's going to sell, It was like, you couldn't get heat on him because he didn't even look like he just didn't know how to sell. But he could sell all this big man stuff and everything. I would cover him, he'd kick off, and I'd go flying through the ropes and all kinds of stuff. I worked with him in Mid-South before, all kinds of different things, and it was easy. He was easy for me to work with. You just have to know you have to watch that clothesline he had, because that circle was stiff. But other than that, he was pretty good.
So in 1989, Carl Styles had been here, but you turned him into Country Boy Styles. But here's my question. was making him carry that pig around. Was that a rib?
Yeah, Ron Piper did that. Piper gave him the country boy styles thing. He said, I've tried everything with this guy, and whatever you do, he just don't sink in. So he said, I tell you what, he told Carl, he goes, you're from the country, right? And he told me, I remember, he goes, how would you like to go as country boy? Cornerstone? I said, yeah, that sounds good. I like it. He goes, well, I need you to get a pig, and he had one next week. I don't know where he got it. But he showed up with one.
Oh,
Piper's come up with all that.
So-
So Piper was doing it riveting, that's for sure.
man.
Oh, I can remember watching that on TV still as a fan. I said, that's a rib.
It was a rib. It's sure as hell was, yeah.
So you mentioned Piper, so let's mention him. When did Piper start booking, and how did he become the booker? Because I think there's a story about you getting fired.
Yeah, that was, well, you were talking about going to Japan, right? So before I went to Japan, it was like 6 weeks before or something like that, before I went and wrestled Fujinami. We moved, if you remember, it was the Christmas show, I believe it was. We sold out the sports arena, turned away 600 people and all this stuff. And Don, like I said before, Don every week go, hey, how come you can't sell out the sports arena? How come you can't sell out the sports arena? Jimmy Snuka did. Roddy, we kept saying Roddy Piper did. All these guys, Rick Martel, blah, 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 and went on and on. Every week when all the guys were there getting paid, he would be hitting me with that. So I told him, I said, I had enough of it. I said, Don, I think Barry's sitting there. I said, you give me 6 weeks on TV and let me do whatever I want to. And don't stop angles and all this stuff and change stuff. Let me do what I want to. If I don't sell this place out, you don't owe me nothing. I'll fly back to Texas where I belong anyway and see you later. Okay? And Don got up and shook my hand. You got to bet. And bet me right in front of all the guys. So after that was over, I was like, man, I don't know if I should have done that, but now I got to get to work on some angles, right? So we put together, it blew. We sold the place out and turned away people. So at the end of the night, I couldn't wait to get over there. I took a shower quick as I could. I went over there and I rubbed it into Don. How you like that? Who sold out the sports arena now, Don? Always tell everybody, boy. And all that, right? So all the guys were laughing. Don was like, I've never seen a promoter in my life be pissed off because he had a sellout. He was mad at me because I was laughing and ripping him so bad. But at the end of the night, everybody left. He goes, he pays me $800 guaranteed. I said, Don, we sold out Eugene, by the way, that night, that Friday, and we sold out Portland that Saturday. No one tells me about Eugene. We sold it out too. So I go, Don, you owe me some more money, dude. We sold out 2 houses for you. He goes, I don't know you're not. You got a guarantee you make the most money here ever anyway. I said, brother, I did all the work. You owe me another $1,000 at least. He goes, you take that 800 and stick it up your ass and do your job or forget about it. You can leave for his uncle, son. Is that right, Don? You serious? He goes, yeah. I said, okay. I said, I'll tell you what, old man, I'm going to get my money back. I'm going to get that money you owe me back. And so I left, right? And that was the end of it. So it went about another 4, 5, 6 weeks. Then Fujinami come in, and then they decided to let me go to Japan to wrestle Fujinami. And so I think I was over there a couple of weeks. And Don always forgot. He paid me $800 a week guarantee. And plus he paid my landline, my phone. We didn't have cell phones yet. So he paid my phone bill. So when I went to Japan, I called home 3 times a day collect on Don's bill. Talk to my family, everybody, how you doing? All that. Collect call as long as I want to. When I got back, I got a phone call. Don goes, meet me at so-and-so, some restaurant uptown in Portland. And he goes, I need to talk to you. I'm driving from Eugene right now. I go, okay, I knew I was fired already. So when I walked into the restaurant, he's sitting there with Barry Owens and Roddy Piper. And I went, oh, shit. So I walked up. He's got the phone bill. He said, here's a $1,200 phone bill in 2 weeks, you asshole. You knew what you were doing. I said, I told you I get that money back, didn't I, old man? Well, I'll tell you what you got. You got your ass fired. And guess who's the new booker in Portland territory? Roddy Piper. I go, oh, really? Okay, is that right? All right. Well, okay. So I said, well, I'll tell you what. And he goes, and I'll tell you what, you know why I hired Roddy? Because he's over better than you. He looks better than you. He does movies you don't. He talks better than you. I said, you know what? Kiss my ass. I said, I'm leaving. I got to leave. He goes, wait a minute, sit down. I'll buy you something to eat. I want to talk. So when I sat back down, Ronnie goes, listen, Don, I appreciate you giving me the book. He said, I'll be proud to book for you and run your TV. He says, but I got one problem. I got a lot of irons in the fire. I'm doing the Love Boat right now. I'm doing stuff for vets. I got a contract with him. I'm doing this and that, commercials. He goes, tell you what I'll do. I'll take the book, but I got to have an assistant. He said, I'd like to hire Lynn Denton to be my assistant. So I got the same job back and the same guarantee and went right back to work, never off one day.
Oh, that's a great
Anyway,
story.
that's how that went.
So you mentioned Billy Jack earlier, and in June of '89, you have a feud with him. So you mentioned he was a little tough in the ring, a little stiff. So did he ever learn how to work? And how hard was it to book him, knowing that he might just take off?
Well, you know what? I worked with Billy Jack in Florida before I came to Portland. He's a good worker. We had good matches. If he wants to have a good match, he's a great worker. I give him credit for that. He's a good talker. He learned how to get over, got a great physique. Everything looks like a Trojan out there, right? Money is instant money, to draw. But you never know where his head's at. Like I said, with Bourne. One time we're sitting in the dressing room, and when he came back, like Frank was saying, we're sitting in the dressing room. Now, we had Roddy Piper. We had Piper Spitzstein. Remember the transmission shop?
Sure.
So me and Piper, we're on channel 12, so we're trying to get as many free plugs as we can on Don's TV, right? So we got three girls with great big boobs standing right where the good guys come out, the wrestlers, and the cameras right on them, and we're running the headset in the back going, widen out, tighten up on the girls, all that kind of stuff. And they're holding signs, jumping up and down with their big boobs going, Piper's Pit Stop, Piper's Pit Stop. And so as they go to the ring, well, Billy Jack seen that and he goes, what is that buzz? I said, brother, don't worry about it. It's none of your business, okay? You're not in charge of advertising, okay, Billy? So went over there and sat down. And you can tell he's mad about it. For some reason, he didn't like it, right? So they took a break in between tape matches. And one of the camera guys come back there. I can't remember his name, come back there smoking cigarettes. So he had to step inside the dressing room door because he didn't want to do it out there where the people were. And Billy Jack seen him and said, hey, you see those girls? They goes, yeah, one of them's my girlfriend. Yeah, you like that? Just Billy Jack, you like them? I think they're doing great. Don't they look good? And Billy Jack just slapped the shit out of the cameraman, knocked him almost out. I had to go over and pull him off the guy. I go, what the hell are you doing? I said, you want to lose TV, you dumbass. But that's what Billy Jack was. You never know what he's going to do. Why is he slapping the camera guy? Because his girlfriend's out there trying to advertise a pit stop. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. What is he thinking? Then I had to work with him. One time I never forget him working with him. We did a thing where, by the way, when I did the thing with his dad, three blind mice and made fun of him and all that, Billy Jack, that was his idea. That wasn't my idea. He told me to do it. I didn't even want to do it. I felt sorry for his dad. You know what I mean? You want me to do that? He goes, do it, hell, to get over it. I go, okay. But anyway, I was working with him one time in Portland, I never forget. And he slammed me, and he's going to the top rope, and I don't know what he's coming up, a punch, an elbow, dropping a leg, dropping a knee. So most guys call it as they slam me and start up to tell him to go, right? I don't hear nothing. So I start to get up. I had my elbow up. He was coming off with a punch. Hit him right in the front teeth, knocked both his front teeth out. He went rolling over, and he sat in the corner. He looked at me, he looked like a pumpkin, no front teeth. I said, damn, I started laughing. But he went back to make Don pay him like $600-700 to get his teeth fixed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it was like, Don chewed me out for, why'd you knock his teeth? Don, I didn't mean to knock his teeth out. Damn.
So
it was craziness about him.
I want to ask one more Billy Jack question, and it's about turning him heel. So he was a good face, strong, had the look, represented Oregon. Whose idea was it to turn him heel? And he was great as a heel, at least in interviews.
That was his idea. He went to Don, pitched it, and Don liked it. So Don called me in and said, I like this idea. Go with it. I said, okay. See, Don, when I would come in, I would come up with mostly everything we're doing. But I'd have to go into that office before I went over there Saturday and run everything by Don. And if Don didn't like it, he'd cut it off. But most 90% of it he liked. So then if he wanted something, he'd call me and say, look, I want this on there. And he said, well, look, so Billy kept He wouldn't do it. It's to start, but he wouldn't switch him heel. I remember, but he kept on Don, like every time we go get paid at the end of the night on Saturday, he kept working on Don, and he finally talked him into it.
And it was a great angle, but then Billy decided to take off a couple of weeks after and only had one match with Larry Oliver. And
Yeah.
it could have been a great way to, with Oliver as a face at the time, so you could have had the face Oliver against the heel Billy Jack, a reversal of their feuds for years.
Yeah, it would have been good. Sure would.
I should have been booking.
You should have been there helping me. Or I should have been helping you, one or the other.
We've talked a little bit about the Breakfast Club, and you told me how that came about. And then I always kind of laugh about Don being mad about spilled milk every night and having to clean the mat. Can you retell that story? That's just a great story.
It was like, you got Bruce Anderson, the commissioner tells us that if you bleed, stop the match. If you hit the guy with the chair, I'll pull your license. If you slam a guy through a table, I'll pull your license. If you hit a guy with a chair, if you do this, if you do that, if you come over the barrier, everything you're going to pull his license. So, I mean, everything that wrestling fans want to see, we couldn't do. I go, what the hell? How are we supposed to come up with angles if we can't? And I was sitting there doing TV, going over the TV by myself at my kitchen table, and John Norton was there noticing the hangover from Friday night after the injury, and I was too a little bit. But anyway, he's over there and he's fighting. What do you got? What you got going? And he's never done TV in his damn life, but he goes. So he hears me on the phone with Don talking about Bruce Anderson and this, that, cussing and raising the hill. What are we going to do about that? And hey, another call and this and that. And he goes, I got an idea. I go, what? Here's John. I said, what? You got an idea? I said, what is it? I know what we can do tonight. You're wrestling Brian Adams tonight in I think it was a strap match. He said, well, come out there and beat the hell out of him, get rid of the referee and tie him up to the ropes. He goes, I'll come out we'll beat the hell out of him with some milk and Cheerios. I go, I thought he was joking me. I said, what? Milk and Cheerios? What are you talking about, Johnny? He goes, no, I'm kidding you. I said, what do you mean, milk? Are you crazy, man? He goes, you ever been hit with a gallon of milk, boy? I said, no. He goes, it hurts like a son of a bitch. I have. I don't know where that happened to him, probably in college. But anyway, I go, okay. Tell me the thing. So he goes, we'll do this, do that, and we'll pour the Cheerios on him and all that. So I thought about it, and I go, you know what? Hell with it. Let's do it. Don't tell Don. Don't mention it to nobody. We hid the basket full of milk and Cheerios and covered it up where nobody could see it in the back. And then when I told him the cue when to hit, and here he come. Don had no idea what was going to happen, and it got over like hell, and people loved it. They never seen that like that. They thought it was great. And all of a sudden, they named us the Breakfast Club, right? And Don hated it, though. He raised so much hell about that milk dried, get the mats cleaned every time y'all do that crap. That shit is the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. We got our ass chewed down 100 times. But tell the truth, Barry thought it was great.
So that was a new angle of the Breakfast Club. But also in 1990, you just talked about the women with boobs. So you start booking Ginger and Veronica. And Portland never had valets. And you've been around some really good valets in your career. Missy Hyatt, for one, for sure. What's the key to booking valets, and how come you brought in valets?
And my favorite valet, Sunshine.
Yeah.
Hey, that was my sweetie. But I tell you the truth, boy, that wasn't hard to get. That pill was very hard to get Don Owens to swallow because he was dead against us having valets. He didn't want that. He was dead against that. I said, Don, we got to do stuff different. We got to catch up with what's going on. We can't just stay with the old school stuff all the time, dude. And I finally talked him into it, and I got Ginger in there. And that started getting over. And I said, Don, I need somebody for her to compete with. I need another girl, And then I guess Veronica sent in pictures, and Don showed me, and I go, damn, she looks good. I can't even remember where she came from. But we ended up getting her in there, and it worked out. Drew some money.
Yeah, because that worked with Scotty the Body, didn't it?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, Scotty, it worked perfect with Scotty. We had, what's her name? The girl, Terry
Power.
Terry Power, she valeted me for a while. Then I switched her, I think, over to Scotty. I can't remember where she went from there. She even went to WWE, I believe, right? Yeah.
I remember Ginger and Veronica, their match was horrible, but they drew like crazy.
Girl, like I knew, I said, you got to have a cat fight. I said, if you go out there and have a wrestling match, then it's going to be like these are two girl wrestlers. I want you to have a cat fight. Right there, rip each other's shit off and fight and scratch and paw. Because you're supposed to be wrestlers. Right?
Oh.
But it drew like crazy.
And that's the name of the game. Like you mentioned, we don't have TV revenue. You're putting butts in the seats.
Exactly, brother. That's what it was all about every week, trying to get tickets sold. I know if Don called me and said, hey, we're 7, or Barry would call me, Don, or they would call me. Barry go, we're 7 rows back. I go, damn, we're going to pack them in. I know when we get 6 or 7 rows to ringside, good house. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Every Saturday, I'll be calling Barry, well, how we looking? How we looking?
So the women, that was something different, the valets, but also you started using all across the country. You had the Rock and Roll Express and all of that, the Pretty Boy tag teams. And so here in Portland, you really started utilizing the Southern Rockers, Steve Dahl, Scott Peterson, and then Rex King. They were over like crazy. How good a team were they, and how good was Steve Dahl in the ring?
Steve Dahl was an excellent worker. I had good matches with him. Rex King was good. Scott Peterson and Steve Dahl, I think, was a better team. I had some good matches, all 3 of them, actually, but I think Dahl was the best babyface worker. I think he was the best. Yeah.
And so then he became Booker for a little while, didn't he?
Yeah, I gave him the book when I knew TV was going away. I didn't tell him that, though. But I said, you know what? I got to give this book to somebody because I know I'm leaving. And I liked Steve Dahl. He had busted his ass for me a long time. And so I said, I'm going to put it on Steve.
There you go.
I know it's really a great story of the Bruise Brothers knocking Don Owen down. And the crowd reaction, from what I understand, was more white heat. And I've heard of that. I don't know if I've ever really seen that in person, but were you surprised by the reaction of the crowd?
Not at all, because Don was like he's an institution, like a legend, dude. I mean, that's Don Owens you're messing with.
Right.
And you're messing with their whole history. You know what I mean? You're like, damn, you don't mess with that guy. You know what I mean? It's people's eyes. And so, yeah, you don't want to mess with Don Owens. You know, I used to laugh. Don was pretty slick. He did this to me. He did it to a lot of different guys, too. He'd do it every once in a while just to see if you're awake. He'd go, like this, ladies and gentlemen, now I've been here a year already, or 6 months. He goes, ladies and gentlemen, this corner, 245 pounds from Texas. He goes, what's your name?
Oh.
I go, what? No, he goes, the name was heavyweight champion. He goes, what's your name? He holds the mic like that. He goes, what? Oh, you didn't remember my name. Don, it's the Grappler. And he starts laughing. Oh, the Grappler. He's doing it to a lot of guys.
And the Bruce Brothers, you mentioned that you had to take them out to the transmission shop and help them learn, but they had a pretty good long career, didn't they? They were tall and were a good tag team.
Yeah, they were tall, but they were so green when they come in. That's why Don says they're not going on my TV. They don't know what they're doing. You know, each other along. So I had to work with them and show them how to do tag stuff and different things. But I think they went to WCW, didn't they?
Yeah.
And eventually WWE. I'm not sure how far they went. I heard they're doing really well now. They got a studio. You know, they're half brother or whatever. He was adopted brother, Mark Sergeant Brown. That band Sergeant Brown.
Right.
Set them up with a studio. I heard they got some #1 records over in Nashville. They're doing great now. They got a studio and they hire musicians and talent, and they got a couple of #1 guys making lots of money now.
I got to throw something in here then. If they've got a studio, how come you're not out there singing? Because I know you and Scotty the Body had a great sing-off in Portland.
I think I should go be the next George Jones in Nashville with the Bruce Brothers. You know what I mean?
So since you mentioned it, how did that angle of you and Scotty singing, having a sing-off come out?
Because I'm trying to think of different angles to do, right? And I go, you know what? You want showbiz, you want different stuff. I know they never seen a live band on Portland Wrestling. We hired a band to play the songs and be on TV and everything, which they love doing that. And I'd seen that angle somewhere before. Well, I heard like Terry Funk, I heard do the famous, something, let me tell you some boy. He goes, you cat can beat you. He said, my mama can beat your mama, my daddy can beat your daddy, my dog can beat your dog. Just do that kind of promo. And I heard him say one time, I can out sing you, I can out dance you, I can out drink you. He's talking about Dusty, right? And so I listened to that. I said, you know what? We should do that. And when I say I can out sing you, have Scotty, because me and Scotty used to ride together. And we'd sing, I'd sing the cut, so I'd sing another song. And something like that. So that's how it come to pass. And I go, when I say I can out wrestle you, I can out fight you, I can out drink you, I can out dance you, I can out talk you, I can out sing you. You start, what'd you say out sing me? And stop me in my tracks and go, I don't think so. You cannot sing, mister. And I'll go, what'd you say, boy? So that's how we started the angle, right? And that's how Don always thought I was insane. He goes, what? You're going to have a string off? He couldn't believe it. He thought I was crazy. And Barry, too. But I finally explained, so let us give it a try. And he did it. And I like to never get him to hire the band, but I finally conned him into it. But I tell you what was funny, a lot of people don't know. We went to a rehearsal with that band, right? Me and Scotty. And it was at the Spinning Wheel in Canby, Oregon. Back then it was a country bar called the Spinning Wheel. But so we went there, and the band's there during the day, like 12 o'clock. And so they went to a rehearsal. So they go, what song are you playing, Scotty? Scotty said, I want to sing Born to Be Wild, that rock and roll song.
Yeah.
And so what song you want to do the fireman with? Because I already sang the fireman with him before. So okay, so all right, all right, Lynn, you go first. So I sang the fireman, we went through the song, blah, blah, blah. Okay, sounds good. All right, Scotty, get up here. And Scotty goes, Scotty, okay. And they start playing. They now play the song. He goes, and all the time, it comes time for Scotty. He sounds like this. Wow. The guy playing lead guitar looks at me and he goes, he's tone deaf, dude. I said, no kidding. Oh my God, it was the worst. But he still won the contest. That's how the fans are.
That's right. And I know Mike's got another question or two, but I want to throw another one in since you mentioned it. So there's been different stories of how Scotty the Body got started in Portland wrestling. So you were here. How did Scotty get started?
Scotty came from, I think he was from Vancouver, BC.
Yeah.
Who was the promoter up there? I can't remember. Tom Cole. He was working with Tom Cole, I believe. I don't know where promoter he was working for. He got to mess around with one of their daughters or nieces or something. And he had to leave in a hurry. Okay. So he come from Canada and come to Portland. And he came there and knocked on the dressing room door and said, hey, it's one of the boys. So he'll talk to the other guys and come in. And who's the boss? Well, me and Piper were there, right? So he come in here and dressed himself. I wouldn't Scotty the Body then. I forget what he called Scott something. And he goes, I want to see if I can get a job. So he went over and he looked, he's in good shape, looked like an athlete, right? And he said, well, let's talk it over. Me and Lenny are talking over. He's the booker. Me and Piper are the bookers. Okay. So sit down over there. We're running TV. We'll talk to you a little bit. So Piper come over and said, hey, well, tell you what, let's do this. Roddy goes, put him out there with Collis and let him talk a little bit, commentate a match and see what he's got. We put him out there and he did good. I told Roddy, damn, the kid sounds pretty damn good on TV. He goes, yeah, so all right, give him a job. So I went and talked to Don, said, hire him. I said, okay, let's do it. So then we hired him. And then I said, well, watch it. I told Scotty, you know what? You got 2 weeks and see how you work. I don't know if you can work. They can talk okay, but I don't know if you can work with shit. So you better be working your ass off. He did. He worked his ass off for 2 weeks and he got a job that way. That's how it happened.
That's the story that I had heard, that he showed up.
Yeah, he just showed up.
Yeah.
Knocked on the dressing room door. Hey, I want a job. And I said, okay. Me and Piper talked to him. He said, go on and do that. And that's how it worked out.
Mike, I know you want to talk to him about one of our favorite subjects, and that's the spoiler.
One of the first interviews I ever had was with John Jardine, and he was salty about everybody he talked. I'd ask him about different wrestlers. Any stories about Don Jardine? And did you talk about mask philosophies or?
When I knew Don Jardine, I watched him wrestle when I was a kid at the Houston Coliseum with Paul Bosch. And so I got into wrestling 17 years old. And I was in Florida. My first year, I turned 18 quickly, like a couple months after I got in. I was 18 years old, or 18, I think. My No, I was about 19. I was in Florida for Eddie Graham when Eddie Graham was still alive. That's how far back it was. Now I'm a greenhorn. I'm just starting to learn, right? I've been in about a year and a half, maybe. And Don Jardine, I rode with Don Jardine and Killer Paul Koch to the town in Florida. I think it was Fort Lauderdale, maybe, or one of the towns. And so I rode with them. And so, I'm yes sir, no sir, all that stuff. And Don Jardine's a big star. Killer Koch is a big star to me. And so I went in, I wrestled this guy, and Louis Gillette was the booker there for Eddie. And Louis had a friend of his there that was working, and he was like about 30, 35 years old, from the same country Louis from, wherever the hell he's from. And he spoke no English, he said, but he was working. And he had booked with me every night. And every night, he would bust my nose or my mouth. And you try to make it like an accident, but I go, man, I know this guy's doing this. So finally, we're in that Fort Lauderdale town, and I'm working with this guy, and he got me in the hole where they got your arm and your wrist and lay it on their ass, and they got your feet against one against the side of your neck and one against your chest and your arm, and you raise up and 1, 2, and you kick and take them back down. Well, he had me by the arm doing that, and as I went down real quick just to check him, and he took his heel and just hit me right in the nose and mouth, busting my nose and mouth, bam, with the heel of his boot, hard as hell. So I just yanked my arm away from him, heel kayfabe. I just got up. When I got up, he looked at me. I locked up. Thank you, good Lord. When he put his hands down, I hit him hard as I could with the elbow, knocked his ass out, cold as a wedge. Went face first right on the mat. Now, what's his name? Sonny Myers was the referee, right? And when he knocked him out, he went down. And I said, I was a kid. I was scared to shit. I didn't know what to do. So I got his arm and arm bar. Sonny goes, kick the hell out of him, kid. He's been beating your ass for a week. And I didn't. I got up, let him come around, then I put him over. When I went to the dressing room, we're in a high school, we got all them lockers and all that with the kids. As I come around through the door, Carl Cox caught me by the throat and slammed me against the lockers. Him and spoiler, Don Jardine. Don had me too. He said, hey, you little punk bastard, listen. If you can't protect the business, you can't protect yourself, you don't need to be in it. Don't ever. We've been watching you get your ass kicked for a week. You finally stood up like a man. Don't ever let nobody do you like that again, be in our business. And boom, he let me go. I went, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm more scared of them than I am the guy I'm fighting out there, right? So I had to ride home with him through all the way home. But I had to wrestle the guy that next night in Jacksonville. I told him, I said, go over and tell him when it's on, brother. If he wants something, come on. And when I got locked up with me, give me the office. Both arms, give me the office. Amigo, speaking English, plain as me and you. I said, you no good asshole. I skipped him a little bit, then I let it go and went ahead and did the match, But that's how I do Don Jardine and Killer Cox and guys like that when I first started.
Wow.
Helping education.
And so my last question for you on the Portland aspects is, we just did the show, Mike and I, with interviews with a bunch of Portland wrestlers. So we played clips of Rose, Ventura, David Schultz, Dizzy Hogan, yourself. And so while we played some bad interviews, which reminds me of Stony Burke, who is a terrible interview, but we couldn't think of a single bad interview you ever gave. So how did your catchphrase come into being, and where did you learn to interview like that?
Brother, I learned, my dad told me whenever I was in Atlanta, because I was just doing jobs, right? They come to visit me, and he said, and then you're on channel 17, they got a big monitor in the back, and all these guys are flying in from all over the country. Brody, Blair, Tony Atlas, everybody. It's nationwide TV, right? And I'm doing jobs on there, me and a few other guys. And so my dad come to visit. And so Ole Anderson was the booker. He had seen my dad in Columbus the night before, and my dad was a big old guy. He should have been a wrestler. He was like 6'2". He had big old handlebar mustache. He's about 250, and big old huge guy. And he seen him up in the crowd. He goes, who is this? That's Lenny's dad. He goes, so he talked to my dad. He goes, look, I'm bringing in a guy tomorrow, and it's Bugsy McGraw, and he's a truck driver gimmick, right? Where he blows the air horn. From the truck driver. He said, I want to see if you'll go out and present him with a plaque on the air on TV in the morning on 17 and give him this plaque saying you're from the Truck Drivers Association and y'all think the world of him and we'll give him all our support and all the fans should too. And my dad did that, went out there and did a hell of an interview with Gordon Soley and everything. Come back, they shook his hand, said, "Great job, Ed." So now I still hadn't started doing interviews yet. My dad, on the way home, he goes, "Lenny, when I went to do my interview, what was going on?" He said, "I noticed some of those other guys, when Blair was on their interview and all those other guys that is always on there, they're horse assing around, talking, telling jokes in the dressing room. They're not really paying attention to the monitor. Let me ask you, what happened when I did mine?" I go, "What? Everybody was watching, Daddy." He goes, "You know why they were watching? They want to see me fail. They want to see you make a mistake. They want to see you lose, not do a good job. Don't give them that. If you ain't got enough guts to be good on TV and be a character and talk on TV, then you need to get your ass home right now and get another job, because you ain't never going to make it in this business." And when my dad told me that, brother, and he showed me that put something in me. I said, I got to, and I started trying to learn right there everything I could. And then I got lucky. I went to Charlotte from there. And then that's when Blair had lost his driver's license, and he picked me to drive him, and he rode with me every night, every town. And we worked on promos, and he worked on me, and he got better at it and better at it. And he even had Crockett make me go up there and do some promos. You know, my first times I'd do them, and they said, "No, I'll do this, do that," a few times, and not many. And then I got better at it and better at it. But where I got the tagline that I use, I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and a lot of people, I was riding every night with Ox Baker, okay? And Ox Baker says, "You know, kid, you got a hell of a gimmick, kid. A fantastic gimmick, the Grappler. I like that name, the Grappler. But you need a finish line. You need a tagline." He said, "I'm going to think of it. I ain't come up with it yet, but I'm going to think of it." And I'm not kidding you, Frank. One day, like a week later, every night, we'd talk about it and different stuff. By about a week, I got in this car going sometime. As soon as I got in, he snapped his fingers. He said, "I got it, kid. I got your tagline." I said, "What?" He said, "They got a name for you when you're the greatest wrestler." And he gave me the tagline. That's where I got it from, Ox Baker.
Wow.
And it all started from there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And we could probably have you back on and talk for about 3 hours about travel stories with Ric Flair, because I'm sure there's a few.
No kidding, bro. I'm taking some good ones and some bad ones.
Oh, hey, Mike, you hear that music? Grappler, I know you can hear that music. That music means we're going somewhere a little bit warmer than Portland, Oregon. Tonight, we're going to take a short trip across the Pacific and look at Hawaii, August 1985, and it's hot August night. Mike, can you tell, before we get there, can you tell listeners where we can find out about hot August nights? Is there a book about Hawaii wrestling?
There is. There's a book called "Oh Yeah, the History of Hawaiian Wrestling."
Well, where can fans purchase that book?
You can find it on Amazon.
Oh, what? That's where it is? Or should I say that's, oh yeah, that's where it is. It's the history of Hawaii wrestling. It's a giant book, 522 pages. It's a phone book. It weighs a ton. Your delivery man won't be happy with you, but you will be when you're reading that. So let's go to that. And the main event was Siva Afi versus Ric Flair for the NWA Championship. But on that card, there were 52 wrestlers and 17 matches. Now, there was Lars Anderson versus Bad News Allen for the Polynesian Heavyweight Championship. The Cobra versus Superfly Tui for the WWF Junior World Championship. Black Bart versus Manny Fernandez for the NWA National Heavyweight Championship. I'm going to run out of breath. Steve Regal versus Mighty Milo for the AWA Light Heavyweight Championship. Dusty Rhodes and Magnum TA versus Crusher Khrushchev and Nikita Koloff. Jimmy Snuka versus Larry Sharp. Andre the Giant, Steve Collins, and Big and Nasty Angelo Mosco versus King Kong Bundy, Kevin Sullivan, and Maniac Matt Bourne. And $20,000 to anyone if they could slam Bundy. Now, it wasn't $20,000 if you slammed Andre. It was if you slammed Bundy. And then Kimura and Tatsunori Fujinami versus Gene Lewis and Gary Fulton. The Samoan Connection versus the Texas Outlaws. Antonio Inoki versus Bruiser Brody. Sakuchi versus Matt Bourne. The Tonga Kid, Sam Anoa, Afa and Sika versus Dick Murdoch, Adrian Adonis, Roy Starr, and Alexis Smirnoff. A guy I really enjoyed watching throughout his career. Richie Magnet versus Gypsy Joe. Poncho Boy versus Mean Little Kevin. Debbie Combs versus the Fallen Angel. And finally, the Dirty White Boys versus the Soul Patrol, the Johnson Brothers, for the Polynesian Pacific Tag Team Championship. Anywhere between 12,500 to 15,000 people were there. $100,000 gate. It's 91 degrees in Honolulu that day. Grappler, what can you tell me about the Dirty White Boys versus the Johnson brothers and that night?
Frank, first of all, you said Gene Lewis. Earlier, I said I was walking down the hall and there's Buck Robley on the phone. It was Gene Lewis.
Oh.
Glad you brought it up. I couldn't remember it. But I'll tell you about that night, brother. It was what it was is like some of the guys, like me and the Dirty White Boys, me and Tony and Rocky Johnson and his brother and stuff like that. Some of the crew from the Whiting outfit was already there, but most of the guys was coming out over from Japan. A lot of the guys were flying in after a tour in Japan. So that's why they had so many different names and different talents from different places, because they'd stop there, take a little break, and do that show, and then make some money and go home, you know. But the match was, I thought it was a pretty good match. I didn't know Johnson was kind of like working with Dog. You just had to put his stuff over to get him over his style. And then his brother didn't look like Rocky, so you get heat on him. He wasn't bad at all. It wasn't a bad match, I didn't think. I thought it went pretty good. That's the only time we ever worked with him, I believe. I thought it went pretty well for the first time. But it was a great card. There were so many different guys on it. It was unreal.
Yeah, you look at pay-per-views today that go for, 5 hours. That show had to have gone 5 hours. That's a lot of people and hot to work in the lights in 91-degree weather.
Yeah, it wasn't bad though. I mean, I was on early, but it wasn't bad. For me, I got out of there pretty quick. It wasn't too bad.
Now, you had some success over in Hawaii. You won the Hawaii Championship, didn't you?
Yes, I did, but I had some nightmares in Hawaii as well.
Oh, let's hear about those.
Well, the last time I was in Hawaii, okay, they put the Hawaiian heavyweight belt up in a tournament, okay? And so, guys, you had to win. Each time you won, you went to the next round. Well, I was there, and we came over, and Leah Mavia was still the promoter. She was still alive, the Ranch grandma. And so she was running things, and Lars Anderson was the booker. And so I worked it. We had a show in Maui, I believe, the night before, and some other show. And then we come to do the one in Honolulu at the, trying to think of the name of the arena. But it was a big arena where they had all their shows, and so NBC Sports Arena, I think it was called. We go there, it's a big tournament, right? So they got all these guys on the card. I was working as a grappler at this time, okay? And I had my wife with me, my girlfriend at the time, she was over there. So we'd already been there a week in Hawaii, right? And so that's pretty cool. I worked Maui in the other town. Now I work Honolulu, and we're supposed to fly back the next day. So I'm supposed to get my guarantee that Leah promised me pay-wise after this match, right? After the tournament. So they come to me and say, you're winning the tournament. So I got to wrestle 4 times. So, okay, so you're going to be the Hawaiian champion. Grappler, okay. So I wrestled, and I noticed in the dressing room there was this guy. I knew that I was on with last. And I thought it was his brother. He was in the dressing room on the left side, but I thought he was smart to the business. I didn't know. Anyway, so we go out there, and I win my first match, my second match, my third match, and now I'm tired as hell, and I had to go out for the final coup de grace, me and this big Samoan guy, right? So I noticed when I get in the ring, his brother said to ringside. I still think this was a setup. Leah or whoever, or Lars or somebody, not to pay me my guarantee. But what happened was, we did the match, we had a good match, and then I pinned the guy, 1, 2, 3, and I get up, and the referee's raising my hand, and here comes his brother charging in the ring. Wide open. I sidestepped him, and shit came, and he went out through the ropes out to the floor. So I roll out on the other side, and I'm heading back to the dressing room. He spins me around, cold cocks me right now, how hard as he hit me. So we're getting a big old fight, man. I'm telling you, Frank, we're fighting, rolling all through the chairs, and he had me by the throat, and I had my finger as far as I could get it up his eyesight. He was squealing like hell, and he was about to choke me out. And they finally got the cops, they had real cops there. They finally got us pulled apart. So we get to the back, we get to it in the dressing room. They finally got me out one side of the dressing room, him the other. And they said, hey, get your clothes and go to the hotel. We'll bring you money. I know. I said, I want my money right now, then I'll leave. And they go, no, we'll come pay you. No, I said, bring me my money. So we're arguing. We're out. Me and the guy comes back in. We almost get into it again. Finally, it gets so bad. They go, the cops are there, and they go, hey, They said, just go, we'll bring the money. Lars answered, we'll bring the money, I promise. Okay. I looked at Leah. I said, Leah, you better not screw me. You better bring my money. We'll bring it. Okay. So we go and get a cab. And now I can feel my eyes swelling like hell, swelling, right? So we get in. This guy was a big old guy, Samoan guy, right? So we get into the cab, and the cab driver, I'm all upset. I got my wrestling stuff on, got my clothes in my hand, my bag, and Katie, my wife, she's getting in the car, and we get in there, we take out the cab driver, I told him the hotel, and I'm humping and pumping, and he's looking up in the mirror like, this guy's crazy, man. And I go, hey, I said, Kate, I told her, I said, Kate, I helped him along pretty good with that asshole, didn't I? She goes, he beat the shit out of you. The cab driver looks up and starts laughing in the mirror. I go, damn, you think you're giving me something? Never mind, Katie. Holy shit. So we get to the hotel, right? And it never did come, never showed up. I called the call. I went by the office the next morning, had to catch a flight out at 2 o'clock. I went by that morning, got a cab, nobody there, locked up. Finally had to fly back to the States. Cost me $1,000. But
Wow.
she did pay for the hotel. She did pay for the hotel for a week.
Did you have any other issues getting paid from Leah?
That was the only time. Well, one time I did. Okay, one time. This was before that. I went over there. It was Kevin Sullivan, Bruce Brody, me, a couple other guys. We worked at Maui, and so we flew over on a charter plane, right? And we worked 2 shows, that island, and a couple shows. Anyway, we're getting ready to leave after the show, and I dressed and Leah was in a room and she had a guy standing beside her with a sports coat on, like standing like guard or something, because she had money there and she's paying everybody. You go in the room, get paid, then you leave and go to the airplane or wherever you're going, right? So on my turn, I went in there and she goes, here to pay me. She shorted me $100. I went, Leah, it's supposed to be 400, not 3. She goes, no, I'll tell you this. I said, Leah, bullshit. It's $400. We'll argue. And finally, Brody reached through, because I'm raising hell real loud. Brody reached through, grabbed me by the collar and yanked me out the door, said, shoved me, said, get your ass to the plane. I said, Frank, that's $100. He goes, I don't care, go. And we're going to tell Frank no. So I go and he goes, you listen. And we got on the plane, he's Lenny. That guy's got a pistol, dude. They shoot your ass and drop you off in the water out here in the ocean and forget about you. And nobody ever hear from you again. Over $100. It ain't worth it. And you know what's so bad? Frank got killed over the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You're saying he saved my ass that night.
Yeah. Now, I think Rocky Johnson later at a TV taping somewhere addressed if you guys knew Leah Maivia.
I was watching WWE on TV at home, and The Rock, come on. And he was just coming back he'd been out for a stint, and he was coming back. And for some reason, he must have been getting flack about it, because he came on his interview and said, before I start this interview, I want all you guys, especially old timers out there, to know, if any of you guys got screwed by Leah, my mother, my grandma, I had nothing to do with it. And I laughed. I was at home. I'm sitting by myself laughing my ass off.
So really, The Rock should pay you $100.
Well, he owes me $1,000.
He does.
Yeah, 1,100.
Oh, well, those are great stories, and that's Island Interlude. So now we're going to go back to the Grappler in Portland. Well, Mike, I got to tell you, it's a night like this why you and I do this show. You know, we spent a lot of time on Ringside in Rose City breaking down careers. We've talked about matches, feuds, the moments, but tonight we got to hear the heartbeat behind it all. So, Grappler, thank you. Thank you for the stories. Thank you for being honest with your candor, for the memories, and most of all, thank you for what you gave to Portland Wrestling. You mentioned a word earlier that caught my attention, and you mentioned your dad talked about being a character. Well, you weren't just a character in the ring. You were a vital force that helped bring Portland Wrestling back to life after a few years of really not great wrestling. And so many fans in this city, you were part of their Saturday night. You were part of their families, part of their lives. And that's not something that just goes away. Now, we've covered through your career, the championship, the rivalries, strategy. You've talked booking, psychology. But hearing from you directly reminds us that's why history matters. It's not just about who won or lost. It's about the impact that these stories had on our lives. And your impact on Portland Wrestling and on Mike and me is undeniable. So from all of us here at Ringside in Rose City, and for all of our listeners, thank you for stepping back into the Rose City ring with us one more time.
I appreciate it, and thank you guys so much.
Well, this was a main event worthy. Mike always says that could be a main event anywhere in the world. This interview could be a main event anywhere in the world. And so to our listeners, thanks to everyone for joining us. Be sure to follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And remember, new episodes drop every Thursday. Be sure to go to Amazon to purchase one of Mike's tremendous wrestling books. You won't be disappointed. And while you're there, if you don't have the Grappler's book yet, I'll ask you why you don't. It's a tremendous book full of stories, personalities, and insight into the grappler that we only scratch the surface on. Again, it's Grappler, Memoirs of a Masked Madman. Every Portland wrestling fan must have that book. I've read mine several times, and Mike, I know, was just put it down the other day. And the Grappler, remember, is going to be at the Gathering in July in Charlotte, North Carolina. So all of our listeners, make plans to get out and see the Grappler. And with that, I'm Frank Culbertson, and this is
Mike Rogers.
And of course, this is the Masked Madman himself.
And they got a name for you when you're the greatest wrestler in wrestling today. They don't call you a great wrestler. They call you the Grappler. Beat me if you can.
And as we say, that's wrestling. Wrestling the way it should be. Lisa, go ahead and take us home.
And that's a wrap from Ringside in Rose City, where one ring, one city, and 1,000 stories never fail to deliver. I'm Lisa Hughes, and this has been a Yaski production. Catch every episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your wrestling fix. Until next time, keep your boots laced, your popcorn buttered, and your stories ready.